I wrote a letter to my local MP. This is really, really important. We're not talking about the same hurdle. Hi and welcome to this new video. This is a video addressing the comments that I got on my previous video. I have had a whole range of comments, and first of all I want to say thank you for that. I have been so enjoying to reading all these comments and replying to them. I'm just gonna start with the most controversial ones. The people that were the least nice, if you will, are the ones who just said, what do you expect? Why don't you just move out of London? I can hear you from Germany. You should just move back to Germany. Or I can understand if you grew up in London, but since you haven't, you should just go back to where you're from. And to those people, I just want to say, in the previous video, I wanted to address the topic of living in London on a low wage, and I didn't reveal whether I was earning below that or above that. Anywhere between 20 and 30k is not the easiest to live in London, and I think if you say, okay, just move away, this is or just do something else. However, every single one of us have complex situations. I'm not saying that one salary is the end-all be-all, but what I wanted to shine a light on is the things in the system that I disagree with, and I'm really glad I did that. And a lot of people really like that. So why not actually go into some of the comments? I screenshotted a lot of them. Okay, I'm just gonna read the first one and see what I think. 70 years ago, you could raise a family, oh, this is a good one, with 3 kids and own house as a postman. Today, you'd barely afford to live on your own. Why does everything cost more in proportion to your pay today? I can't say for sure, but a good deal of it is corporate greed. This is a really interesting comment. Now, 70 years ago, all right. I wonder how old is the person who wrote this, but that's not the point. The point is, there was a time where you could just have an ordinary job and you could afford to have a home and a family, and now you can barely afford a home or a family. And that's sad news. Yesterday, I did something I've been thinking about for a while. I wrote a letter to my local MP, and this letter I'm going to read out to you at the end of this video. You can skip there now if you want. You don't have to. I'm also going to post a similar letter for you if you want to write to your MP and you just want to fill in the gaps. It won't take a lot of time. You can just fill in the gaps, copy and paste it, because the way that you find your local MP is you just Google it. You just say your borough and what's my MP for my borough, and then you will find the email address very easily. And I think it's a good idea if as many of us could do that, because it's important to speak up. Okay, I'm actually going to go to my screenshots. This is what happens when the government only invests in one city. It becomes too expensive to live because all the jobs and opportunities are there, so naturally more people from across the country and world will want to live there to benefit from the opportunities available. The government need to invest in other areas of the UK so people don't have to move to London. Yes, in the UK, London is a city that a lot of people move to because this is where they can get a job with their degree. So it's not always necessarily the choice that they want to make, but that they kind of have to make. You can't buy in central London, only lease, and you want equality, but it seems you want supremacy. Many people deemed rich to live in central London have worked hard and get where they are, and some have rich parents who have worked hard. If you move out of London, the cheaper it gets. Move to Scotland, you can get a massive property for 100k. In Spain, you can have a 3-bed flat near the sea. If you move not just out of London, but let's say to a completely different part of the country, or to a different country, or to a rural area, this all kind of depends on your preferences and also your opportunities, because not everybody can work remotely. Some people need to skill up, but this is the thing, because somebody wrote me a comment that years ago the fees were 3,000 and then they very quickly climbed up to 9,000. I'm not an expert on university fees, but what I'm saying is that there are stones in the way of people trying to break out of the system, and this is what I think needs to be removed. And while you're upskilling, you're still in the same situation. You probably still have to work full time because you still have to live, and this is a problem. Well, so I agree that living in London on a small wage is difficult. Most of us have choices, yes, and I agree with that. But like I said before, we all have complex situations and not everybody has the same opportunities. With so many MP landlords, and I hadn't thought about that much. MPs who are landlords, who have an interest to keep people in their place, who have an interest to keep leases, who have an interest to control the situation. So furthermore, landlords, we are not going to see rent control anytime soon. So rent control is something that, for example, we have in Germany. It means that rent cannot go up further than the government has decided. I was thinking about this topic of rent control, because if there was rent control, there wouldn't be as many flats that investors were interested in buying, because there was a limit. More properties would open up to people to buy them. Somebody was talking about Thatcher and how Thatcher privatized some of the council flats. So I think what this person is referring to is that people in council flats can buy the flat at a lower price. I'm going to put the information here in the video, and I think they can actually still do it because I looked it up and it sounded on the government website like they can still do it. What's the problem with that? I think what they were getting at is that originally the idea was that somebody who could normally not afford to buy a flat could then buy the council flat at a lower price. I used to rent a room in a council flat which was owned by a private landlord. That this is probably the problem this person was hinting at, that at some point when somebody wanted to sell it, they then sold it onto the private market and somebody starts to rent it out, and the end of the story is that there is less social housing. So initially I don't think it was a bad idea, but you always have to think about ideas in the long run. The UK is wealthy enough to make sure that everyone has a roof of some sort over their heads. I like that comment. The problem is the elites and corporations in partnership purposely driving the wages down. I speak to Americans on a daily basis that tell me they are moving back home because the wages in the UK are so bad. This comment I find quite interesting. 30k is the lowest to survive, to cover rent, food and travel. 45k is the new 30k. Sadly, I think that's true. I lived like that until I was 24. It's an ugly life. Yeah, if you're really young and you're just starting out and you can't live at your parents' house but you live on a really low salary, I don't think it's your own fault. Oh, this is a really, really important and good comment. I have 2 adult children who are still living at home with us. We live on the London-Essex border and they cannot afford to leave home. By the way, speaking of, somebody commented, if British people live at home, it's okay, but if Italian men live at home, they're called mama's boys. They are both on minimum wage, and even though they're both qualified, they just can't get a higher wage. It has got to the point that my daughter is looking to move up north as she can get so much more for her money. How can people be expected to manage on 25,000 a year? I think this was a really great comment because it stands for so many people, for the reality of so many people. And you know, having to do that, having to move somewhere, even though that's not your choice, can impact your mental well-being negatively. I talk a little bit more about that in my letter to my local MP. Immigration is how they keep you poor. Just import people who will work for less money and have high turnovers. A lot of people have pointed out immigration. I don't really want to touch on that so much. because I feel that's not really for me to talk about. All the new build properties popping up overnight and hardly any social housing, it is bad. Plus, why the government sold off large amounts of housing stock, privatized everything like gas, electric, water. I think that's such a good point. That was not a good idea at all. All the basics for living to corporations who charge whatever bills they fit has added to the problem. It's nice to see this issue being talked about. I've been kind of really dying to talk about this topic because I feel that maybe because I have a lot of older friends who have generational wealth, I often feel that not everyone who has been through this issue understands what it's like, because if you bought many years ago, yes, you still needed, depending on what year we're talking about, depending on what salary we're talking about, but let's say many years ago you needed 8 annual incomes, and then today you need 18 annual income, depending. It is not the same. We're not talking about the same hurdle. The mountain certainly has gotten higher. UK housing is a scam, run by the classes of developers, land bankers, estate agents, landlords, mortgage providers, banks, civil servants. This Okay, here we go. This is the interesting part. Housing should cost 10% to 12% of net income and within a short distance of employment, yet many people are paying more than 50%. And that's the thing. That really shouldn't be. For very small, inadequate housing. Also very true. What is needed are rent controls, quality, spacious, low-density family rental properties built on agricultural and purchased at okay, I'm not very good at reading this. For long-term rental only. To construct new homes only cost 25% to 33% of the sales price. I thought that was so interesting. And about shared ownership. One person said they feel really stuck and they regret buying into shared ownership. One person got out of it and another one was just telling me that it's not as bad. Again, it all depends on the big picture, and you always need to get all the information that you need before signing anything to decide whether it's right for you. I was referring to somebody on a low income who's not able to scale up to 100% in the end of the day, which then keeps you stuck. And also a lot of the flats that are sold are very overpriced. Shared ownership is a joke. Each time you want to buy a bigger share, you have to go through conveyancing again. No point. I didn't know that. Is that true? So that means then you have the cost of conveyancing again? How does that work? Do we have any need for a class system? No, except some people at the top, they think there's still a need. But how can you go to sleep at night knowing that can we live out of somewhere more conscious than our egos? Good point. The whole system is well past its sell date. I love that. The whole situation is a complete joke, and the joke is on us. The future of London will get more and more expensive. It's not the ideal place, but I feel sorry for the future generations. You know, until I read all these comments, I never really thought that it could get any worse. Maybe that's naive, but I think that's terrible. I really hope not. Rooms are now costing 800 to 1,500 depending on areas, and that is expected to be double by 2035. Is that true? That's really depressing if that's true, but it's not just London, it's many locations in the UK now. That's exactly why I wondered when people said just move somewhere else. Where? Because I don't want to go to a remote area. Many people need to work 2 to 3 jobs and 7 days a week, or need to have a partner. You need to get a second job. There is no alternative. I used to work 2 jobs from 2008 to 2011, do 70 plus hours a week. Wow, I cannot believe that you did. I remember when university courses were 3k per year, then all of a sudden they raised to 9k. Just grief. I regret to inform you that the UK government doesn't give a about its citizens. Well, we need to do something about that. Middle class homelessness is coming. I think this is a really important comment. This is exactly what I don't want. I don't think you want. Oh, I wanted to mention this comment. You mention UC, but not housing allowance, which is separate amount the government will pay you to cover most of the costs of renting a room. Now, I'm really grateful that you and actually somebody else pointed that out, because I didn't know that. What would really interest me is who can get this? What are you allowed to earn to get this? Buying a property in the UK is nearly impossible and will become impossible for most folk very, very soon. Yeah, if it keeps going up, then definitely. I think that's enough. Now, don't go away. I'm going to read the letter to you. And please adjust this letter to yourself and send it to your own MP. My name is Melanie. I am a resident of ... Council, and I have recently created a video for my YouTube channel. I have had such a huge response to my video. In the last 2 years, I have not earned more than ... I have looked into various options in terms of housing and getting on the property ladder. The options that people have made me realize that our system isn't designed to help people get out of where they are. It's designed to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. This system is outdated and we should not aspire to it. This country has many problems, but one of the biggest problems is the ignorance of the fact that most problems are connected. When someone cannot meet or struggles to meet their basic needs, this has a negative effect on their well-being. This can have consequences on physical health and mental health. It can also result in turning to illegal options. Our prisons are full, our NHS is scraping by, our nurses and doctors are on the brink of burnout, as well as many people in other occupations. Why am I telling you all this? The reason I'm bringing this up is these are the symptoms of our system. The root of the issue is inequality. Our class system is not a system of equality and not taking care of the actual problem at the root. If people can meet their basic needs, can do a job that doesn't get them to the brink of burnout, understand the basic of healthy food, healthy habits and mental well-being, then they do not have a need for illegal activities. They would not burn out and they would not get sick as much as they do. We currently live in a society that ignores the problem and desperately tries to plug holes. Building more prisons without a proper reintegration plan and treating illnesses when they are already at the advanced state isn't the answer. When people have the means and the time to look after themselves, they are more efficient, happier and healthier. Equality also means for everyone in this country who has the means to pay tax. Everyone. I would highly appreciate if you also watched my video and forward this letter to whoever you think needs to be aware of it. I appreciate your time and effort, and also thank you very much for taking the time to read this. Alright, if you made it to the end of the video, please post a yellow heart. Yeah, I'm not good at doing this. If you like the video, subscribe to my channel. There will be more videos, and see you next time. Bye!